Hey everyone, welcome to the Neurodivergent Perspectives Podcast, the podcast where we get real about the neurodivergent experience at work. I'm your host, Dr. Allison Leanos, neurodiversity researcher, educator, and deeply passionate about neuroinclusion, who spent years studying one big question: what is it really like to be neurodivergent at work? The answers? Hear from my guests. Let's go. Okay, we're here with Cyndi Rivera on the Neurodivergent Perspectives Podcast. Hey, Cyndi, can you say a couple things about yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Cyndi Rivera. I am a mom and wife. I have 3 boys, twins that are 12 and a soon-to-be 16-year-old. I'm also an educator. I teach middle school English and theater. People like to say it's the hardest age to teach, but I feel like it's maybe the easiest for me. I am ADHD. I don't remember when I was diagnosed, but I do know that I was told I was ADHD by a college healthcare worker. And then I went home to tell my parents and they were not surprised and they said that they already knew that. So I don't know. Yeah. So that's about me.
Yeah. And for everyone listening, Cyndi and I have known each other since we were about 4 or 5 years old. We met, I think Cyndi was actually my first friend other than my sister, because I have a twin sister. And so obviously Melissa, my twin sister, is my very first friend. But Cyndi was my first school friend. And we met when we were around 4 or 5 years old in kindergarten. So yeah, Cyndi and I have known each other a long time, kind of, off and on, kind of in and out of each other's lives. But, we did school together, high school, Girl Scouts, all the things.
All the things.
Yeah. And so it's been fun experiencing each other grow up and become the women we are today. But I really just appreciate you being on the podcast to share about your experience with ADHD, navigating the workplace.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. And so you said that when you were in college, your health counselor told you like, hey, you have ADHD. And then you told your parents and they're like, yeah, I'm not surprised at all. But did you ever feel like your brain worked differently prior to that and you just didn't know what was going on?
100%. I've always been that person that I know I'm smart. Like I know I can understand it, but it always took me longer to get it. Mm-hmm. I feel like I really wasn't getting it necessarily the way that the teachers maybe explained it. And I needed time to go home and process it. I always felt like I was always like one step behind my friends growing up, like always trying to fit in that sense. And I feel like I specifically remember like my parents being like, school's so important. You're not working to what you're capable of. Mm-hmm. And I would get that all the time. And I'd be like, I'm trying so hard.
Right.
But like basic things that were just easy to people were so difficult to me. Like reading, I took a long time to really learn how to read. I mean, I knew how to read, but I didn't comprehend what I was reading.
Right. You were just reading words, but not really taking in what you were reading. Right.
And now as like an educator and as a parent to kids that have the same problems I had, I'm able to kind of see the processing or, like I can see the wheels working. And I know that my kids are super smart. Like you tell them something or they watch something, man, they soak it up like a sponge. But if you try to get them to read it, they struggle. And then once they get it read, they're like, yeah, I don't know what I just read. And that's something I deal with even today. Like, it was funny. I was watching a thing about ADHD last night and I literally didn't finish listening to it before I started commenting on it because it was on Instagram.
Right.
And I didn't even finish listening to it, but the first thing that came out was like, man, that's totally me. And then I went to go start, commenting on it. I didn't even finish listening to it. And then I was like, and here I am. I have to go back and listen to it.
Here I am, like with my ADHD behavior.
But yeah, like growing up, I feel like it all made sense. Like now that there's so much more research and so much more visibility, I feel like, girls with ADHD really wasn't a thing, unless you were like a huge behavior problem, which I wasn't,
Right.
you know, we weren't really seen as anything but maybe lazy. Like I did get like, oh, you're just being lazy or, like just like trying. I would even keep so organized. Like I look at it now and I look at like my teenage kid, right? I look at Joey and I'm like, just write it down. Like just put it in your planner. So I even did that. Like I was even writing stuff in my planner and I still couldn't get it. And then like to come home and do homework. My God, I sucked at doing homework. And now that I look at it, I'm like, literally like I went all day really just putting in everything I had inside of my mental capacity,
Yeah.
my brain load. And then I would try to come home and do it again. And I was just done,
Right. Yeah.
but the expectation was that you get it done, and I
Well,
never
because
did. And
you were trying to fit a mold in school to kind of to debunk the narrative that you're being lazy.
right,
You're trying to do it like how the other kids were doing it,
right,
writing it down, and also, not having the maturity or know-how to realize like that's just not who you are.
right,
And like just having, maybe instead of writing it down, maybe you can file it away in your brain, and that works just as well.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was the other
So,
thing. Like if I could have just the amount of time just to like sit there and process it,
right.
it probably would have sat a lot better if I, wasn't forced to do it a certain way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So would you say, so for example, your type of ADHD, so you're not hyperactive. You didn't have any behavior issues other than the fact that people thought you were being lazy, when in fact that it was just you navigating school with ADHD but not really realizing what was going on inside of yourself. So would you say that a lot of your hyperactivity is internalized?
Yes. Yes. So I will say I am considered a combined type. So I do technically have the hyperactive part, but it's my brain that's hyperactive. So I feel like I'm going a mile a minute in my brain at all times, which makes me inattentive, right? So I will hyper focus on certain things for sure. And then everything kind of goes out the window because I'm hyper focused on something else. And it can be a benefit and it can also be a negative, So
Right.
like when it comes to like getting a 15-page paper out, I can get it probably done in just a couple hours, and some people are like struggling for weeks, but when it comes to, sitting down and I don't know, getting something prepared, like an agenda or something. If it's not like something that's, what do you call it? That's like gonna make me want to do it, right?
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
whole task avoidance thing. But unless you like do friendship bracelets, like I went into it and I got into doing friendship bracelets for like 2 weeks, and then I was like, okay, I'm done.
Right. Yeah. All the pile of unfinished projects.
Yeah. Well, I've been working really hard on trying to finish my projects. So like, I don't know if you've ever seen Woobles. They're like a
Oh
crochet, like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. The
yeah,
cute
yeah,
little knitting creatures that or
yeah.
characters that you can do. Yeah, I
So
love.
I totally like got one and I was like, I did it. And I did it. I finished it and it looks so cute. It was a flamingo. And I have another one to do. Like it's just been sitting there. But I finished the first one and I was like, wow, I did a good job. Like check me out. And then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't done one
Like
since.
the rush is gone. You're like, okay,
Right.
like I did that. Like it's good. The
Yeah.
rush, but the rush for it's not really there anymore.
Yeah. I'm like, we're done with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Wooble.
Yeah. I have a little capybara waiting for me to do.
Oh, cute. Yeah,
Yeah.
capybaras I think are really in right now with the kids.
Yeah, they are.
When you were starting your working experience, how are you navigating the workplace as someone with ADHD?
I actually have been thinking a lot about this recently because my oldest is he's trying to tell me that he really wants to get a job, but he is also like very much like me, but a little bit more immature than I was at his age, you know? And so he's like, I really want a job. And I was like, you can't handle a job. I'm like, and I tell him like, you can't even like wash your own dishes, you know, or like we try to get you to do your laundry or, you know, just like the basic things. I'm like, you also like to do what you want when you want, and you hate, he's got that whole oppositional defiance disorder. So, which comes a lot with ADHD and ADHD, right? And autism. And so I feel like I see a lot of myself in him, but I was a little bit more mature. I had to grow up a little bit, you know, at his age. So I will say the plus side is I was in Girl Scouts. We were in Girl Scouts together, and we did a lot of volunteering. And I feel like by doing and being immersed in that volunteering and doing something for somebody else, without having being, well, I mean, like we would be given a task, but like you weren't exactly told everything of what to do.
Right.
I feel like that kind of put me in a good spot for the workplace, right? Some of the struggles that I encountered was time, like being on time. My first job was working at C's Candies. And then my mom worked at C's Candies, but I didn't work with my mom. I just worked at a store that my mom had worked at. And I remember I was working at the Fashion Square Mall, and we would go across the street. But I was like,
I think I remember you working there because I also worked at the same mall, but I worked at a different store.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just remember like I was doing all the sports. So I did tennis, water polo, and swimming. So I would have whatever practice. And then I was also in band, which is a lot of time. And then, you know, like we went to a college prep high school. Like it wasn't easy.
It was
you know,
very
like
rigorous. Yeah.
yes,
academically and athletically, the expectations were very high.
exactly. And I was also like on scholarship to that school. So it was like, if you don't get your acting gear, like you're not even in, you know?
Right.
So there was that. So I feel like when it came to working, I was always like rushing to get to work, you know, like my husband always makes fun of me, like that I have no concept of time, but for the most part, like I get to work on time, like early. Right.
Yeah.
And I kind of attribute that to when I worked after I worked at C's, I worked at the city of Santa Clarita as a lifeguard. And that whole dynamic was if you are early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, you're fired.
Oh my God.
So that really ingrained in me the importance of being timely. And then I worked at Disney, and Disney was on a point system. Now, I think that their point system's a little different than it was when I worked there, but essentially, if you're like, I started off the year with 24 points, and if you called out, it was 3 points. And if you were late, it's 1.5 points. But you could only get, I think it was 6 points in a month or 3 months. And then you could get 12 points in 6 months. So like you couldn't just like rack it all up in 1 month, you know, the 24 points. So
yeah.
I just remember if you didn't follow those rules, then you would again get fired. And I was like, I kind of need this job to survive.
Like they have benefits. It's Disney. You love Disney. Like all the perks. Yeah.
Exactly. So with that being said, that the whole timeliness and all that really was ingrained to me. Now, like the overall sense of, am I doing a good job? I'm just a people pleaser at heart. That's just who I am. And I'm very empathetic. I can feed off of other people's emotions. So I feel like I've always wanted to do a good job, you know? With that being said, I remember being a lifeguard and having my very first like review, if you will. And during my review, they said, "You're great, Cyndi. But this is what I want you to work on." And hearing the feedback is hard, right? Especially when you're young and you're trying to learn how to accept feedback. And not really seeing it as a way to grow, but seeing it as like a criticism.
Yeah.
And I remember they said, "You do everything you're told to do, but you're not taking enough initiative." And I was like, ouch, man, like I'm trying so hard to be perfect. Like, what do you mean I'm not taking initiative? I'm doing all the things. And they're like, no, but if you finish all your work, find something else to do. And I'm like, but I
Right.
finished all my work.
Like you were literally like, you told me to do this, I did it, but they really want you to say to be like, there's something else that needs to be done, like I don't know, mopping, like sweeping the
Right.
deck. Maybe I
Right.
should go sweep the deck instead of
Yeah.
them asking you to do it,
Right.
which is a great
So
life skill, but it's hard to hear as a young person.
absolutely. And I think I heard that 2 or 3 times. So every time I would hear it, I'd be like, but I've been working so hard. So, that was really difficult. But I feel like just being immersed in Girl Scouts, I kind of got that code switching, right? Like
Right.
knowing just how to just switch it up real fast. But I do know that, and I do this even today, like when I get done or when I get home, even after driving, I need a minute to just sit and just be quiet and do
Hmm.
nothing, maybe doom scroll, but sometimes not even doom scroll. Like sometimes I just sit there in my car and just
Yeah.
stare out the window just to disassociate for a moment.
Hmm.
But I would do that a lot. Like after a shift or something, I would just sit in my car and listen to music or something. But yeah.
Do you feel that transition between let's say you're coming home from work or coming home from some sort of other, I don't know, engagement with like groups or people, that coming home and sitting in your car to just space out or disassociate, would you liken that to kind of just taking the mask off?
Yes, absolutely. And it's crazy because so many people that think they know me really well will be like, "Oh, you're such a people person, Cyndi. You're so sociable. Like you get out there and you can talk to anybody." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it takes a lot. Like
Yeah.
I'm not this year, but in years prior, I've been PTSA president and, I'd have to go to these dinners and banquets and things
Mhm.
and just go put on the happy face and go, hi, and it's so nice to
Right.
see you. And the handshakes and hugs. And it's just very overstimulating. And I just
Yeah.
would sit in my car before and be like, okay, you got this. It's only for an hour, like you can do this.
Yeah.
And it just taking a deep breath when I get out of the car and just walking over, and it's like a whole little pep talk that I got to give myself. And then when I get home, oh my God, I just dive into bed and I'm like, nobody talk to me for at least a half an hour. And they all know, my husband and kids all know.
Yeah, like leave her alone. She doesn't want to be talked to.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the hyperactivity that you experience is mostly in your head.
Yeah.
What do you do to quiet your mind?
Okay, so lately, I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're called loops.
Are they like earplugs?
Yeah, they're
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. I've heard of them.
earplugs.
Yes.
Yeah, but they make it to where you can still hear what's going on around you, but it kind of just takes off that the static, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed that my boys are boys, the most rambunctious boys that you could ever imagine.
Hmm.
And they are all neurodivergent. So if you can imagine having 3 neurodivergent kids, it's a lot.
I have one. I don't know. It's so hard to imagine three, but
Yeah.
I mean, neurodivergent people are absolutely incredible, creative, authentic. But I can imagine there's you, and then your three boys just all together.
Yes. And they we all have our little quirks, right? And then sometimes we will set each other off too.
Yeah.
So I'll have to be like, your brother needs a moment. I need a moment. So I just need you to sit. And then they get all offended and sensitive, but I don't want to. I was just trying to love you. Um, so it's a lot of just refereeing a lot of time. But those earplugs really, they help. I ended up getting
Yeah.
a set for, I've been using them for myself so that when I get overstimulated or it's just getting to be, so I would say overstimulating and more anxious, right? So
Hmm.
I've been trying to do a lot of work of trying to figure out what makes me anxious, because a lot of the times I would just tell my psychiatrist, I don't know what makes me anxious. I just get anxious.
Yeah.
And so knowing what makes me anxious, I think is a big piece of that. So if I could just say like, okay, right now I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now because everybody's acting a little too crazy. That's like a good indicator. And then sometimes I'll put my headphones in or my earplugs or whatever, my little loops.
Right.
And I'll put those in. But a lot of times it's a lot of like deep breaths with kind of just resetting my mind. Sometimes I have to close my eyes. Sometimes I have to remove myself from a situation. I try not to remove myself from the situation. I feel like over the years, I've dealt with this for so long that I've learned how to cope with it to an extent.
So outside of the house, when you're at work, you're an educator, you teach middle school kids, you talk about occasionally getting anxious or overstimulated. How are you navigating that when you're in the workplace with your ADHD?
Yeah. So specifically with the kids, what I love about that is that they are middle schoolers. And I think that's why I love this age so much, because they're starting to understand themselves as well as understand people in general. So when that happens, I just kind of look at them and I'm real with them, and I'll just be very honest. I'll be like, guys, you're being too much right now. And I think they appreciate my realness, if you get my drift. Like I'll tell them up front, like, I have ADHD, like I am very open about it.
Yes.
And I want to create that atmosphere so that kids don't feel like their neurodivergence is a bad thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
I feel like neurodivergence is a good thing and that you could use it to your advantage.
Yes.
But it's being open and being able to cope with it, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just be really real with them, and I'll just say, guys, like, you guys are being too much. And so a lot of the times they get to be too much when I give them too much leash. Like if I let them do too much,
yeah,
that's usually my fault. So I'll be like, we got to reel it in, guys. And sometimes that can look like me saying, okay, are we done with this activity? I think we're done for today. And then we can always come back to it the next day, right? Like it's not life or death. And sometimes I'll be like, everybody, like when it gets real bad, I'll be like, okay, everybody, heads down on your desk, close your eyes. And
count me in. That sounds great.
Right? Like I'm like, everybody put your heads down. I'll turn off the lights. I'll put on some calm music.
Yes.
And sometimes it looks like, okay, everybody take out a sheet of paper, grab a pencil. I need you to draw a circle. And then I will need you to make me a creature that can survive in a hot planet with lots of water.
Okay.
Like that. So sometimes just shaking things up a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
But some of the kids like will tell me like, you're so patient. You're so like, you don't get mad at us. And I just explain to them that not everybody is like me. Right. And that because my brain works differently, I understand that other people's brains work differently.
Yes.
Or just it's not the expected way that people's brains work, right? Like there's an expected way that you're expected to act in school, and I'll tell them that. And sometimes it's hard for us to act that expected way. And so it's finding those little pieces of how we can adjust to fit that mold. Yeah.
Do you think that being transparent with your students up front that you have ADHD, do you think that increases like better performance in the classroom? Because like, you've been authentic with them, so they feel, okay, maybe I can let my guard down a little bit and be my authentic self.
100%. I feel like the best way to be a good teacher is to be your authentic self, right? Because you're able to build that relationship with the student, right?
Yeah.
If you always have your guard up, they're not getting to know you. They're not going to trust you completely. I mean, yeah, sure, we all have our favorite teachers and whatever, but if you think back to it, like what makes you really like a teacher? And it's because you feel like you can relate to them in some way. Like you think they're cool, or you think that they're easy to talk to, or, it's always how we connect with them, right? That's how they become your favorite teacher. And so I just try to build those relationships with the students, because I feel like if I can build that relationship, they're going to want to come to class. They're going to want to learn. It just sets their minds, and it gets them ready for a learning environment. I've had students come in that are not even in my class, but they come in with their friends and they're like, dude, this is a cool classroom. So I try to create a calm environment. I always put music on. That's another thing. It's funny because students at the beginning of the year will say like, I don't like this music. And because I put soft music, like I'll put like
Yeah.
classical music, jazz music, whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't like this, why don't you put on some, pop or hip hop or whatever? And I'll just be like, because it's not for learning yet, I'm like, we'll have
But
our
they
time.
eventually end up liking it, right?
Yes. So at the end of
Yes.
the year, they're like, I remember I didn't have my music on. It was having issues with my sound or something was up with
Yeah.
tech, right? And they're like, Miss, where's your music? And I was like, oh, we're gonna have to go without it. And they're like, I don't like it. Or like safe testing, we're not allowed to put music on. They're like,
Yeah.
this sucks. I hate it. Can we listen to music on our computers? And I'm like, no music. And they're like, but it
Yeah.
helps us focus. I said, I know. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll hum a little tune.
Yeah, right.
So
But
what
yeah.
about your colleagues? Do your colleagues know that you're ADHD?
Yeah, and it's interesting because my mentor teacher, she was like, whatever you do, don't tell people that you're ADHD. And I was like, but it's who I am. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and she was like,
Yeah.
yeah, but some people might, if you tell people that you're depressed, right? Automatically they're like, oh, she's depressed. They just automatically think all these things and that
Right. A
has nothing
stereotype.
right. And so I was just like, the whole mental health thing is more accepted these days, thankfully.
Yeah.
And I'm open about it because I have so many overwhelming ADHD qualities that if I don't, it's like they already know,
Yeah.
I might as well just let the cat out of the bag and say I'm ADHD, So I don't know, like I'll just have a moment, or I feel like in the workplace, one of the things that's the hardest for me that I had to learn is having to know when to talk and when to
Oh.
share.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, I feel like growing up, I always was like an oversharer. And that's just because we're trying to find a common ground, right? Like
Right.
it's your way of trying to connect with people. It's a little awkward at times for people. They're like, wow, she just shared a lot, like too much, too much.
Like TMI.
Right.
Or
But
why is she still talking?
right. And
Yeah.
and then even still or they would interrupt people, right? And I still work on that today. Like sometimes I'll interrupt people and I'll be like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or I'll completely embrace it and be like, I'm so sorry. I got to interrupt before I forget. Like otherwise
Yeah.
I'm going to forget. And they all know. They all know that that's just who I am and I don't have any ill will behind it. They all know and respect me for who I am and what I do. So I feel like it's better, but like I know that when I was in corporate America, it was definitely seen as an immaturity, like, oh, she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know how to handle herself.
Yeah.
And I just remember that part for me was always really hard. I know I can be well spoken, but sometimes I always felt like people thought less of me because of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
So that was hard. And I feel like as an educator, people are more open to it than corporate America world. And so I can be more myself as a teacher than I was in corporate America. Even though I
Yeah.
was definitely respected and listened to in corporate America, it's just not the same. Like I feel like I can read people really well, and I always felt like they always like
Mm-hmm.
looked at me like okay, Cyndi, okay, yeah, but it's real sarcastic. Okay, yeah,
Yeah. Almost like treating you like a child.
exactly. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, ugh. So that part was hard. But I feel as a teacher, especially at my workplace, everybody is very open and everybody is very authentic. And to an extent, I feel like most teachers have some kind of neurodivergence going on. So,
Well, I mean, if it's a working environment that's inclusive and welcoming to different neurotypes, then I can see how
yeah.
a majority of educators could be neurodivergent. I mean,
Yeah.
so you said you worked in corporate America. I
Mhm.
remember those years when you worked in corporate America. Is that was it your neurodivergence that inspired you to go back to school and become an educator because you were looking for a different environment that you could thrive better in?
Yeah, kind of. I think when it came down to it, I always wanted to be a teacher. Like,
Yeah.
even out of high school, I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't know what kind of teacher I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I went to school to be a music teacher at first and then was like, that is definitely not for me. And then I'm actually, I'm an English teacher, but English is not my favorite subject, sciences.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
yeah, it's just that I'm good at English. So, which is really interesting because I was not good at English many, many years
Right. You're like
ago.
reading and writing was not my thing when I was in
No,
school.
it was not.
But
And I
here
remember,
you are, like excelling at it so much that you're teaching young people how to be good at
yeah,
it.
I
Yeah.
mean, I remember being in water polo in college, and my coach was like, "Oh, I signed you up for this." It was like an upper division literature class. And I was like, I cannot take that class. I will fail. And she's like, no, no, it's with a great professor. You're going to be fine. I was like, no, 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 I won't. And then sure enough, this professor changed my life. I did have an opportunity to go back and thank him. His name was Dr. Diastoli. And he has since passed away, but he changed my life and how I looked
Yeah.
at school, how I looked at English and writing. I was getting D's and F's. I was in remedial English when I started at a university. So it was definitely always a struggle. And it took him just sitting with me and being like, you can do this. You're a smart person. And sure enough, once we did it, I mean, I ended up getting an award with my thesis, and it's just like
Wow.
all kinds of,
Incredible.
yeah, all kinds of really cool stuff. So anyway, I didn't want to go into corporate America to begin with. I did it
Yeah.
out of necessity, to be honest.
Mm. Pay the bills.
Yeah, after my parents passed away, I was left with their debt. It's like a whole long story, but I was left with their debt. And whatever you do, don't put your kids on your own account. We
Oh
learned
my
that the
God.
hard way.
And get life
So,
insurance, please.
right? Yes, and get life insurance. So I inherited all of their debts, so I had to pay off their debt, right?
Yeah.
To clear my name. So I was working at Disney at the time, and I loved working at Disney. It just does not pay well. Like, I had a college degree in English, and I was essentially like a technical writer.
Right.
And my friends that had just graduated were doing the same work that I was doing, but they were getting paid twice as much, if not three times as much as I was getting paid.
Yeah.
So after they passed away and I had all these bills to pay, my friend in the entertainment industry was like, would you like to come work in the payroll world? And I was like, me and math? I don't know about that. But thanks to hyperfixation and ADHD, I mastered it.
I love that
I
for you.
mastered it. I got really good at it, and I was ending up training other people how to read union contracts and pay, with payroll and use
Yeah.
formulas and stuff like that to audit. And that was fun. So
And you were
in
also
my
kind of scratching your like teaching itch because you were
right. So in
teaching
my
others
brain,
how to do things. So
yeah,
you were
in my
kind of getting
brain,
a
I
little
was like,
flavor.
yeah, I was like, this is okay because I'm teaching people, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not teaching kids, I'm teaching adults, which is fine. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I went to, within that same company, they were a satellite of a bigger company. And the bigger company was like, would you like to come work in our learning and development? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Yes, sign me up. And that was definitely right up my alley. However, in my eyes, they didn't do things the way they should have done things. And that's not to say that it was wrong or right. It's just
Hmm.
not the way I would have done things. And I have a different lens on how people learn. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
so,
Oh, 100%. We all have different learning styles. Some
right.
people learn by doing or observation.
Right. And they were kind of
Absolutely.
focused on like one way or maybe two ways, but there's
Right.
5 different ways we learn.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it's a combination of those things. So I had survived 14 acquisitions with that company.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah. And so I just knew that the writing was on the wall. I knew that the company was going to go in a different direction. I knew that they were going to eventually dissolve the learning and development sector. So I started thinking, maybe I want to go start teaching. So I went and my kids' class actually needed a substitute. So their teacher was like, why don't you go sign up to be a sub? And I was like, can I do that?
Yes.
And they're like, yeah. Yeah. And so I was, all right, I guess I can do that. So then I went and I signed up to be a sub. And then literally like just a couple months later is when I got laid off. And then I had the conversation with my husband, like, okay, luckily California has a thing where like if while you're going to school, if you are unemployed and you're doing a public service type role and you are like in a training program, they'll pay you unemployment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this way I was able to get paid kinda. I mean, it's
Right.
unemployment, so it's
Yeah.
not
So it's like,
anything. And it's for a year, right?
yeah.
So they end up, and I was laid off. So that also went into it. And so he was like, why don't you go back to school and go do the thing that you want to do? Because it was that whole, do I go back to school and do this, or do I just look for another job in the same field?
Yeah.
And is that what I want to do for the next 20 to 30 years, you know?
Right.
So that's when he said, why don't you'll find a way. You always do. And I said, all right.
Yeah.
And so then I did that and I applied. I'm not going to get into grad school. I ended up finishing college after 7 years because I'm ADHD. So I was like, and then I think I had like a 2.56 or something like that. And trying to get into grad school, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be accepted. And then I went to Claremont Graduate University, which is a prestigious university.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way they're going to accept me. Come on. But they said I had to, in addition to my application, I had to submit an essay as to why I should be admitted, even though my GPA was horrible. And so I did. I wrote, and then I had an interview, and then I was able to do that. And then that's how I got into teaching. But yeah, the road to get to my teaching was not easy. You know, like it was definitely at some roadblocks because I wanted to do that from the time I was really little. So
yeah. And I'm so happy to see that you're doing it now. And it seems you're thriving in your work experience. And I want to learn more about how you mentioned that working in education tends to be more inclusive or accepting of different neurotypes and different ways of thinking and learning.
yeah.
What leader characteristics do you think are necessary that foster a sense of belonging and inclusion for people who are neurodivergent?
Yeah, no, just being completely open. I feel like administrators and teachers, a lot of times your administrators are or were teachers, so that also helps. But I feel like they're immersed in so many different types of people. And especially when they're kids, you're really diving into the development factor and how people's brains work at different ages. And I feel like that is a big piece in the inclusivity of everything and just being accepting of the differences that people have. I also feel like, you know, given that I work at a public school, with every kid that's different or neurodivergent, we have to figure out different approaches of how we're going to deal with a student. It's not a private school where we can be like, oh, you don't fit in here. Bye.
Right.
We have to figure out how their brain works and how we're going to help them and how we're going to make them succeed, right? It's not even like just get them through. No, we want to help them, you know, gain the capability to use skills for life, you know?
Right.
And how do we do that? So I feel like just being in education alone, you're just exposed to all of that. And I feel like in just with that, it's going to in turn make everybody just more inclusive and accepting of people in general. And so I feel like that's why I'm okay to say I'm ADHD. I think that's why I'm okay to just be myself. And they see that I produce good work. The work, you know, my work is in the data, right? Like,
absolutely.
My work is in my classroom relations with the kids, you know, my classroom management. So I feel like with all of that being said, education in general is just more open and inclusive because of their constant exposure to all of the different people that we have.
I'm curious because you said that you have a very busy mind.
Yes.
So when you're at work, what does a typical workday feel like for you internally versus externally, what others see?
I was actually thinking about this before I got here because I've been on shutdown mode, and this is like something that I had to do. Just, it starts with literally getting up out of bed and getting ready for work every day. It starts with that. My oldest struggles with taking showers, and you would think that's just a basic hygiene necessity. And then it really, I really kind of just thought about it, and it takes a lot, right? I remember his therapist told me, it's actually a lot of stimulation for somebody with ADHD. There's the whole process of getting your change of clothes, making sure you have a full outfit, bringing that to the bathroom. And then, okay, I have to wet my hair, then I have to wash my hair, then I have to wet my skin, and then I have to wash my skin. Then I have to dry my skin. And then he doesn't like the sensation of water hitting his head. So you think about all those little pieces, right? Whereas it's a normal thing. We go take a shower. It's just what starts our day sometimes, right?
Right.
And then I have to tell him, okay, you're ready for school? Cool. Make sure you're wearing clean clothes. Make sure you put deodorant on. Make sure you've washed your face. Make sure you've brushed your teeth. And I always have to I can't give him too many at the same time because then it just won't happen. Right?
Yeah.
It's not even a matter of it's too over. He just won't do it. It's so much that he's like, nah, it is what it is.
Yeah. So what does a typical workday look like for you internally versus what other people see on the outside?
So taking a shower is just overstimulating in itself. Just getting ready is a lot. So everything just starts from that moment, right?
Right.
So, and then I have a drive to work. I have a commute. I work in LA, and it's at least an hour to work. And so it's just mentally preparing myself through that whole drive, in addition to being a good driver. So that's another piece of it where all these things are happening in my brain, is just going through things okay, I got to do this. I got to do. And I noticed that I'm constantly going through my to-do list in my head all the time. I asked my husband if he does that, and he's like, no, I have it on the calendar and that's it. I check to see what I got to do, and I just know what's next. And I'm like, so you don't constantly just go through your to-do list in your head? Because I do. So I'm constantly and I carpool. So I'll talk to my carpool. He's my colleague, and I'll be like, okay, so what are you going to do in the morning? Do you have copies to do? I have copies to do. So I think when I get to work, I'm going to go do some copies, and then I'll check my email, and then I'll write on the board. And I go through every little step.
And it's this not is even every day you do this?
Yes, every day in my head.
Yeah.
But it's all up here,
Yes.
And then it'll just continue that way. Okay, I made it through. Now I did this. I got this amount of time left. All right. Now we got to do this. Or the kids will be like, Miss, what do you have planned today? And I'll be like, you'll see. Because most of the time I'm like, we got this. We're going to wing it, not wing it. I have a general idea of what's going to happen, but
do you have different tabs in your head, with different lists? So for example, your administrative to-do list, make copies, check email, go check your mailbox in the faculty lounge. And then do you have another tab where it's lesson plan?
I feel like they're all separate tabs. I don't think there's one tab or one file folder for one. I feel like they're just all a bunch of tabs. And it's kind of funny because when you look at my computer, I have a bunch of different tabs open all the time.
Oh my God. You need to listen to Paige's interview because she's like, I have a bazillion tabs open at any given time. And I just tell people passing my computer, this is just who I am. Just keep walking.
And I know where they are.
Yeah.
I know that my email's over at this side. And then I know that I have to go to this other thing over here. I know where they all are.
Yeah. But that's really all that matters is you know where they are.
Yeah.
Other people, don't let my tabs concern you. Just move along.
The tech guys always give me a hard time. They're like, your computer is going to start performing so slow.
I have
Or
heard
if
that
I,
too. Yeah.
yeah. Or if I'll say like, oh, my internet's slow, they're like, did you close all your tabs? And I was like, no, why would I do
You're like,
that?
that's sacrilegious. I cannot close my tabs.
Right? It's awesome.
If you could redesign the workplace to be more neurodivergent friendly, what would be the first thing that you would change?
I feel like it starts with people.
Yeah.
I feel like the more people are educated about neurodivergence, the better. I feel like most people aren't inherently just bad and dislike people like that. I just feel I feel like they're jaded a little bit. They've been taught to expect things a certain way. They've been taught to do things a certain way. And sometimes it's really hard to unteach somebody. But eventually, it's just that whole continuous exposure thing. And then over time, people start to kind of just grasp onto it. So I feel like the more we educate people and the more we have awareness of what neurodivergence is and what it looks like and how it can look very different from person to person, I
Right.
feel like that makes a huge difference. And unfortunately, when it comes to workplaces, what makes a workplace, right? You have to ask yourself, like, what makes a workplace? And so if a workplace is filled with people who are just closed off and haven't had any exposure to any neurodivergence, of
Yeah.
course, they're not going to be inclusive.
Yeah.
But if we have a workplace where individuals have been exposed and educated and made aware, and
Hmm.
that it's okay, that's the other thing. People need to not only be educated, but they need to understand that being different is okay. Like
It's actually more than okay. It's
yeah,
great to
yeah,
have different neurotypes in the workplace. I mean, there's studies that show that teams that have cognitive diversity actually outperform teams that are homogenous.
I totally can see
Yeah.
that completely.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I feel like to an extent, I feel like even my husband's neurodivergent. I don't really know how he's neurodivergent, which I keep trying to analyze him. And I've known him for over 20 years.
He has
But
his own tab in your head.
pretty much like, I'm always like, he knows me so well, but there are definitely things I think maybe he's a little bit on the spectrum,
Yeah.
but I just love how we complement each other. We are so different, night and day, but we're both very stubborn. So there's that. Like, we're both like, I'm right. So that can get fun.
Yeah.
But all in all, I feel like if you have a bunch of neurodivergent people in a workforce, they're going to be amazing because they're usually very smart and very creative, and the way that you can problem solve and just make
Yes.
things amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just so, a lot of the times I think outside the box, right? Like,
Yeah.
people will be like, I get a lot of that when I have
I think
ideas.
also, people who are neurodivergent, especially those with autism, tend to notice things that others may not pick up, like
Yeah.
specific patterns or details in something that might be hard to see or understand. I mean, I see this with my own 8-year-old son. He'll pick up on patterns or he'll point something out that I've been exposed to hundreds of times that I never saw. Like, and
Right.
he immediately pointed it out. And I'm just like, wow, blows my mind every time.
Right.
Do you have an experience where, because you talk about when you talk about the workplace, it's made up of people. That's the
Yeah.
workplace is people, organizational culture. And have you had an experience where you worked with someone who didn't have exposure or understanding or awareness of neurodivergence, and then they did? And so it changed their whole perspective and how they approached working with colleagues or maybe working with you. Like, do you have an experience of that?
I mean, it happens all the time because I'm so open about who I am.
Yeah.
The most recent one was actually my mentor teacher. And it's kind of shocking because she's been a teacher for over 30 years. And I just, for some cultural reference, right? She's Asian.
Hmm.
So she's just starting to really, like, one of her kids is, both of her kids are adults at this point. But one of them came up to her and was like, oh, yeah, I have ADHD and I have anxiety and depression. And at first she
Hmm.
was like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Right. That whole denial factor. Right.
Right.
Not my kid. But then he was like, no, this is what I have. and you're going to have to learn to deal with it. And so it was a real, and then at the same time, she's working with me, who is very, very much like, I'm ADHD. I'm one of those people that I will do something while something else is going on. I will multitask like crazy. Heck, when I listen to things like audiobooks and things like that, I like to listen at minimum at 1.2 times speed, but usually at 1.5 to 2 times speed. Otherwise, it just loses my interest.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I don't like to listen to books. I love it, but it just wasn't going fast enough for me. So I would start doing and wondering other things. And so if it goes faster, I can pay attention. But when you're teaching English, you have to try to slow down. And I'm like, I can't slow down. My brain is going too fast. So it was really interesting to see her push back. But then I'd be like, I had to focus on certain students in my student teaching. And when I would focus on these students, a lot of them were neurodivergent, and I would point out their neurodivergence. And she's like, they're just blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. Like, they're different because of this. And then I did have to say, like, oh, they're on the spectrum. And because they're on the spectrum, they're going to do this. And she's like, she always just thought it was, and like Joey ended up having her as a teacher in 7th grade. And she used to get on him for sitting like weird. Joey is a little pretzel child, and he's got long,
which is very the way people sit can be indicative of their neurotype.
Yes. So right now I am not sitting proper. My legs are all over the place right now.
Yeah. Stephanie, who I interviewed in another episode, she works in emergency medicine, but she does a lot of education stuff. She's also a pretzel sitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my kid used to always, and I don't, he's so skinny that he was able to do this, but he was able inside, the typical school desk, he was able to put his knee up to his chest in between the chair. And she would be like, you need to put your foot down. And I flat out told her why? It's not hurting anybody. And she'd be like, no, you need to sit proper, feet on the floor, face forward. And I don't even sit like that.
Absolutely not.
No, and she was, well, that's how you pay attention. That's how you focus. I go, that's how you pay attention and how you focus.
Right.
I was like, but look, even me, take a look at me, the way I'm sitting. I said, I don't sit like that. I can't sit like that. If I sit like that, I am not paying attention to anything other than how I'm sitting and how uncomfortable
it probably
it is.
just make your skin crawl just thinking about it.
Right? I hate sitting in folding chairs that are stacked next to each other for performances for the kids and stuff, because I just know
because you can't do your little pretzel sit.
No, it's so annoying. And then being on the curvier side too, how are you going to sit, It's
how do you survive even in airplanes too? I mean, unless you have an empty seat next to you.
It's so uncomfortable. So I've taken to liking the aisle seat because of that.
Yeah.
Because I can sprawl out into the aisle a little bit when needed.
Yeah.
But yes, it is. My husband's like, oh, you have restless leg syndrome. No, I just have ADHD. It's just, that's how it is.
Yep. Don't mind me.
So yeah, I feel like even with her, we were able to, she even to this day will Cyndi, thank you so much for opening my eyes to a world I just never paid attention to.
Wow, that was incredible.
Yeah. And I feel like...
Yeah. Well, that's what, that's why I'm hoping this podcast is doing and even just my study, examining the neurodivergent experience at work, and then having this podcast is we should, talking about it and sharing the content on LinkedIn, where a lot of leaders are participating. And so I think if we just keep talking about the neurodivergent experience, because every experience is different, it's a spectrum.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's millions of working adults who are neurodivergent, but yeah, to your point, just having more exposure, more awareness and understanding, and then just keep talking about it, and just your generosity with sharing your experience is incredible.
Yeah, just you got to get it out there. I feel like the more we talk about it, the more. Mm-hmm. Especially when they see good, respected people doing good work, and then realizing that they are neurodivergent and it's okay.
Yes.
I feel
it's gonna be all right, people.
Right. I know we're different, but it's a good different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, what advice would you give to other neurodivergent adults entering the workforce?
I would say play the game because the game is important to play. And it gives you the opportunity to read people, observe people, and learn from people, but also don't lose sight of who you are. And when the timing is right and knowing that you have the inclusive crowd around you, come out of your shell and be yourself and show people that it's okay to be who you are. But to that extent, like if your workplace is making you uncomfortable, then that's not a good fit for you. You need to work where you spend so much time at work, it's like your other family. So
Right.
you need to be able to be yourself and you need to be able to feel comfortable. And if you don't feel comfortable, then it's not a good fit. And
Yeah.
that's your cue to look for something else.
Right. Great advice.
But also don't be afraid to like educate people too.
Yeah.
There's ways of going about it to where it's not so scary. If you just say like, I'm ADHD, get over it, like, to a brand new employer, they're probably not going to take that so nicely. But
No.
over time, you can just say like, this is who I am, and it might be a little quirky, but I do a good job.
Yeah.
A lot of times performance is measured by the quality of work, and neurodivergent people have great quality work. So
Yeah.
with that, and then also like trying to find ways to work with others. Like I know that being neurodivergent is difficult working with others sometimes. And just finding and being able to communicate what works for you. So like if your boss is saying, you're not doing this or you're not doing that, you could simply just go up and just say, I work best under these conditions. How can we have a good middle ground?
Yeah. Great advice. What is the most neurodivergent thing you've done today?
Have my squishy this whole time.
Yep, that's pretty neurodivergent. Your little fidget toy.
Yeah, it's been in my hand this
Yeah.
entire time.
Yeah. Cindy's
Um,
holding up what is it? A clear pink Nido? Is that what it
yep,
is?
yep.
Yep.
That's my Neato. It's my squishy. And then I'm also sitting like a pretzel right now.
Very nice.
I also will just go off tangent. I think I'm very focused today. I'm very impressed with myself. I've had a few moments, but for the most part, I
Good.
catch myself.
What moments? This was great.
Okay, good.
No, this was great. I mean, honestly, sharing your experience, your story, tying in the experiences with your boys. No, this
Yeah.
was great. Yeah. No tangents whatsoever. And even if you did, like, well, even though you thought you went on tangents, it was great.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I'm so excited to see you thriving and doing something you love. And
It took a while, but we got there.
yeah, same with me. Same with me.
Right?
I spent over 20 years in corporate America studying doing marketing, which is something I never really wanted to do, but I was just, I chose it to just make my parents happy. And then having Graham, who has autism, and later realizing he also has ADHD and dyslexia, I was like, okay, I need to do something a little bit more meaningful and with purpose. So check us out.
Yeah. We're all good and stuff.
Well, Cyndi, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate you and your story and experience. And I
Thanks for
will
having
see you
me.
around.
My first bestie.
Yeah, first besties, first school besties. Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah, forever.